Bev again, and today I want to talk about leverage in terms of limb length, okay? And obviously there are many factors involved in how much weight somebody can lift, but shorter limbs do give a basic advantage, and it's all due to leverage mechanics, and it's involved in all joint movements, okay? So the length of limb is going to determine the amount of resistance that you have to deal with. And you know what? I'm not saying that people with longer limbs can't build up a bunch of muscles. Of course they can. I just want to talk about some of the differences, okay? And I think the best way to talk about it is physics, okay? I don't know if you were listening to your physics teacher in high school, but physics is really, really interesting in terms of forces and force management. Even in the gym, or roller coasters, whatever, they're fascinating in terms of force and gravity and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, the main equation in physics in terms of biomechanics that I think you should try to understand is that work is always equal to the force times the distance. And those are the terms used in physics. If we think of biomechanics, we could think of work as being the energy expended, okay? I don't care what exercise you're doing, okay? You have to expend some energy or some work to do that. Force, in terms of weightlifting, is going to be the weight that you're using, right? The plate, the dumbbells, whatever. And the distance we often refer to as the range of motion, which is a very simple concept. It just means how far does that weight have to travel, okay? So the distance through which the weight travels is going to make you expend a certain amount of energy. And I'm not going to get into the details of, what kind of angle it's on. Let's just keep it simple. So let's take, for example, two different people. And one of them is going to have short limbs, and one of them will have long limbs, okay? So we'll just say distance short, distance long, okay? I don't care if it's the femur or the arm, whatever. And let's say that the weight that they're lifting is going to be exactly the same, 50 pounds, okay? Now, the person with the shorter range of motion, and remember, this is an equation. So if this distance is less, and this is an equation, then the work must be less to keep it an equation. So the energy expended is less for this person, for the 50 pounds, and similarly, more for the person with the longer limb, okay? So if the shorter limb person does 10 reps of 50, they're going to expend a lot less energy than somebody doing 10 reps of 50 weight who has a longer limb, okay? So, just pointing it out. If I talk about different types of exercises, let's talk about how this sort of limb length leverage works. So if we talk about pressing and benching, for example, how far does that barbell have to move, right? So we're talking about, if you have long limbs, it's got to go a long way, right, on a bench press, for example. But, you look at the power lifters, the way they get around this is they arch their back. And by arching your back excessively, you can shorten the range of motion. And then you can lift more weights because you don't need as much energy to lift more weight. And similarly, with a deadlift, if you see people with their feet really wide apart, it's going to make the range of motion, the distance, less, and so the energy expended less. Now, I do want to talk about long-limbed people in terms of squatting, because they really have to be careful when they're femurs are very long. And I'm not talking about how long your torso is, right? You can have a short torso and long limbs. You know, we've all got different bodies. But in squatting, there's an optimal path for the barbell, right? You want the center of mass to be over your feet at all times, right? So if you're looking at somebody doing a squat, you want the barbell to go down and up, you know, if you look sideways at them, over their feet, okay? That's the center of mass. Or base of support, let's call it, over your base of support, which is your feet. You want your center of mass over your base of support. The longer the femur, the greater the distance between the load and the pivot point, right? So this makes it harder to maintain that optimal path. And what happens is the person with the long femur, as they begin to go down and sink, their backside begins to come out, okay? And balance becomes very, very difficult. And so what happens is then they begin to they begin to round their back. And all of that is not a good form for squatting. So if I look at somebody, if I'm training somebody with long femurs, I'm going to suggest that they do front squats with the barbell across their shoulders, and that they put their heels up on a little weight plate. And that's going to really kill their quads. And really, isn't that what squatting is about anyway? So I just wanted to point out some of the differences for limb length. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned from this. So we'll see you in the next video.